I haven't. Does anyone else want one?
Is it the agenda?
Sure, I'll take one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's chiming in.
I have a copy over here that I can live without if somebody needs it. Do we need more?
I mean, just to get to know us, right?
I know.
We're just chit
There's
chatting.
only public comment on the
But we need the agenda.
Yes, yes. Well, there's
Agenda is for chit chat.
there's 3 questions that we need to know.
Okay, the time is 6:03. This is the August 13th, 2024 special meeting of the Human Relations Commission. I'm calling the meeting to order, and I'm thrilled to be able to do so and to look around the room and see wonderful new faces, which we will get to with a roll call.
Felix,
Present.
Kevin,
Present.
Connor,
Present.
Ellie's absent, Amir,
Present.
Lainey,
Present.
Dima,
Present.
Edgar,
Present.
Daniel's absent, Kate,
Present.
Michael.
Yep.
And our other vacancy is the DGOC position.
All right, we have a quorum, and I really want to thank everyone for being here, and especially our ex-official members, our continuing members, and our new folks. And I'm so excited. This feels like kind of a pivotal new kind of reset for the Human Relations Commission, and you guys are going to be the key. So the first item on the agenda is just approval of the agenda. We have one item, which is simply a time to kind of get to know each other a little bit. And I am open to however you all want to do that, rather than force you to kind of make it up. I have simply started with a commission member introduction, totally open-ended. And there are some suggested prompts to for you to kind of think about as you consider how you want to contribute to the meeting. And I thought what we might do is simply ask people to kind of go around and then give it for a few minutes and then kind of give us time for kind of Q&A or any follow-up or whatever. So it's not just like a talking heads thing. I'm hoping that this can be a little bit of a conversation and just as informal as possible. So with that orientation, that is the suggested agenda. And if that meets with your approval, I would entertain a motion to proceed.
I would love to motion that we approve the agenda.
A motion by Pickett, second by
I'll second. Oh, sorry.
Jen. Cool. And all those in favor, we have to take a vote. Say aye. Aye. All those opposed, abstentions, seeing none, the motion passes, and the agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for members usually to speak on agenda items that are not listed, or issues that are not on the agenda. And today, in the context of the special meeting, it is for matters that are listed on the agenda. I don't see any members present, but Carrie, do we have any written comments?
No, we do.
Okay. Okay, so we can move right ahead then into our regular item, which is the rest of the agenda. And I'm not going to give a speech, but I am really, really grateful for the continuing service of our veteran members of the HRC and the new folks who, despite the fact that you all have many other things on your plate, have raised your hands and interrupted your Wednesday evening and have committed to do your Thursday evenings in the future, really once more. Along with hopefully a bunch of community work, and that will give us an opportunity to work in small groups on kind of special projects and bring it back to the full commission for the discussion. So I really am hoping this can be just as open-ended as possible, but I'd like folks to kind of introduce themselves, talk about what matters, your history with the city of Davis, what's on your mind today, you know, I'm hoping that you can also think about or have thought about the 3 prompts that we've included in the attached memo, which are just really supposed to help us kind of start having a conversation about what matters to you. So I would be open to anyone who would like to volunteer. I will reserve the prerogative of the chair to go last. And we can do it by volunteer. I can call on people, we can do it alphabetically. Any way you want, I don't care. But
Can I add something? It
Please.
would be awesome to hear from folks just things about their background that made them interested in being on this commission. Because I think some of the toughest things about this, being on this role, is we tap into our expertise and what we've done in the past, as well as into our community networks. And so if you have any type of affiliations, or if you have just past work or just anything, it helps. Because oftentimes we don't learn about folks' networks until it's we're deep into planning for an event, and we're like, oh, you knew all those people. I wish we knew that. So if you have any of those type of affiliations, I think that would be helpful.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, to the extent that we can make this meeting a cocktail party without the cocktails, that would be my drivers. We do have the hors d'oeuvres, thanks to Edgar and Ken. But yeah, that's a great suggestion, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll volunteer first. Yeah. Hello. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Felix Alvarez. I have met a few of you in being part of the community. My wife and my family, we moved here. Well, at that time, we were a very small family. We have grown since then. But we moved to the city of Davis from Sacramento. We had been living in the Midtown in the Land Park area, and we moved to Davis in 2020, I believe. My wife works for Solano County as a social worker, and we had hoped to shorten her commute. Of course, we chose to move, I believe it was March of 2020, which was right when everything shut down. Or I think we moved in February, and then March, everything closed. My wife went to telecommuting, or teleworking, and has since. So what commute? It's no longer there. But I, as far as myself, I'm a paramedic. I have worked in the Yolo County area, as well as Placer and Sacramento counties, but primarily in the Yolo County for the past, 9 years. In terms of speaking as to what brings me to the commission or what interested me in the commission was as a public servant and somebody that's devoted their life to helping the community as an emergency medical provider. And once I joined this community, I thought, how can I be more useful to the community? How can I expand upon what I do and make this community or maintain this community something that I want for my family and better in the betterment of the community as well. I have a multiracial family. We are Latino and Asian, and my kids are biracial. And I would like for them to grow up in a community that is welcoming to them and enjoy all of those things that I have learned to love about Davis and make it better than what it is now. So, in terms of affiliations, I wouldn't say that I really have many. As a first responder, I do work closely with the fire department, the police department, and so I know some of those individuals. With my company, we have done community outreach programs, we have done demos, that sort of thing, hands-on CPR, Stop the Bleed, those sorts of trainings throughout the community, both in Yolo County and here in Davis as well. Partnered with the university at times to provide those services or educational promotions. And I guess in the future, if we were to attempt to do something like that, it is beneficial to the community. I guess I could probably get some service there. It is a pleasure to meet all of you finally. I know it's been a long time coming since we were appointed and announced. To be in this room is really exciting for me. I can't wait to get to know the rest of you.
So,
Yes.
Felix, I wanna just ask you if you wanna sort of put out on the table, for kind of consideration, any of the issues or challenges that you think is.
Can I make a motion? Can we do like intros first and then dive into topics?
I like that a lot.
Because I think it'd be cool just to get to know before we get into the nitty gritty of like,
Okay.
what's wrong with Davis? How can we make Davis better type thing? Like,
We can say what's good.
Start with the.
good, what's good?
The warm fuzzy.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Got it. I will save all the complaints for later. Don't worry.
Okay.
Is that
You want
okay with
another
everybody? Is that okay with
volunteer? We
everybody?
wanna go around? Let's go around.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. So I'm Dima Sweeney. I think in August it'll be 10 years I will have been living in Davis. Little bit about my family. I have 2 children in DJUSD, one who is going to be starting high school this upcoming year, and then another one at Emerson, so 13 and 15. I don't know where time went. And we actually moved from San Francisco. I grew up in Washington State, moved down for a job in tech, was working in the tech sector for a long time. Both my husband and I have done that. My involvement with the community really grew, I'd say, in 2016, because I was just community. I was an early telecommuter. Like I did that with the tech company I was working at a couple years before I decided to actually leave and do some things in the community. But then, of course, COVID came and that became kind of more of a norm. When I was working in the community, though, I think the first sort of thing that really brought me into the community and working a lot with people was the 2016 election. There's a lot of disillusionment in the community. There were a lot of people kind of gathering to just discuss how they felt about the election. And then also there was an uptick in what seemed like racially motivated incidences at the schools. So a group of parents and I put together a plan to sort of get this resolution that was called the We All Belong resolution, I think is what they ended up calling it. And it was more of a statement just to say that the schools are meant to be a place for people to feel safe and comfortable with wherever their background is. That was really my first kind of community involvement. And then about a year later, I decided to work even more in the community. I started a startup called Giving Garden, which was an app that helped people grow food based on like local information and share food with one another. And I really dove into just the community as a whole, getting to know people in the city, getting to know people in the county, both on the food side, but also just on community resilience. I started to work with the UC Davis and UC A&R, so started to have deeper connections also with university, which was really great. And then COVID came around, and I feel like COVID is like a part of everyone's story. So when that happened, a lot of the work I was doing that was actually bringing in any money was with the university, and a lot of the funds there were kind of like frozen or unsure what was going to happen there. So I ended up going back into tech. And as of February, so that was about 4 years back in tech, and as of February, I left my tech job and I'm back into figuring out what I want to do, but have also sort of like reintroduced myself to the community, really like started to like build on those relationships again and chat with people, and so that's kind of my kind of background and connection to Davis and the community. In terms of networks, if we ever need anything regarding food, I think I definitely there. Event planning, food, the arts, I'm pretty connected into the art scene. I think another area more recently that I've become more connected with is the Arab American community, the Muslim community, as well as some of the student organizations on campus. So I've always had some connections with student organizations more on the food side, now a little bit more on the social justice side. So I am happy to reach out to those groups and networks and be of service in that way. And my reason for wanting to be on this commission, there's probably a lot, but Davis is such a wonderful place, and I just want to see it continue to be, but even be better at being a welcoming place for everyone. And that means like including our student population. It's one of the big reasons why we moved here from, we'd always thought we want to move to a college town. And I still feel really strongly that that we made good decisions in wanting that. But I think more attention to our students is something I'd love to see. And yeah, I felt like as I looked at the various commissions, this made the absolute most sense for my background and my interest in connecting with people, my interest in like trauma-informed communication and making sure that that's being brought to the table when we have communications or hear from people. And hopefully create an open space for some people who have maybe not felt comfortable coming to things like a commission and speaking about what they are afraid of or what they hope for. Hopefully I can in some way, because of my connections, because of my background, create a space where they feel more comfortable doing that.
Thank you. Edgar, the veteran.
I think, yeah, I think I'm the oldest one now. So my name is Edgar Wong Chen. I actually grew up in Davis. I grew up in the west side of town. At the end of my street, you couldn't see anything back in the day. It was where West Manor Park currently is. There was no cul-de-sacs. It was we felt like, and I think we were one of very few Asian immigrant families at that time. I had very few friends who were students of color and very few families. And so a lot of like my parents coming into the country, they came through the university like a lot of folks did at that time. And my parents became just dedicated UCD staff members. Unfortunately, in many ways, because of their immigrant status, because of their language ability, very much abused by UC Davis too. They definitely struggled. This is a long time ago, and definitely UC Davis is much better now. But it kind of like shaped how our experience was growing up in this town. I went to St. James for a little bit. So these are just so you can see my path. And then I went to WDE, which was West Davis Elementary, which is now Cesar Chavez Elementary School. I went to WDI, which is now Willett. And then I went to Emerson and Davis High School. I was just like you're just regular, average, super competitive academic kind of kid in Davis, but like everybody was the kid of a professor, so it was extremely intimidating growing up here. It was really, it was hard. I wasn't the smartest kid, but my parents, being immigrants, you have to be the smartest kid, and it was a real struggle for my sister and I because these Davis kids are so smart. And it's still that situation now, and I think as I talk to a lot of families, that's some of the concerns and the underlying tones of just how competitive and aggressive and the parent community is. We've turned into a Bay Area town in many ways. So from there, I actually didn't leave. I went to UC Davis, but became very politically active, and one of the things that we did while I was at UC Davis was we started a really large student activist coalition. Back in the day, it was called the PSC, the Progressive Student Coalition. And through that, we actually ended up, within 2 years, taking over ASUCD. And we ended up taking over a ton of the leadership positions on campus, as well as we had massive influence in UCSA, as well as in a lot of the other intricacies at UC Davis. The weirdest thing was that I also held an interesting position, which was student assistant to the chancellor my senior year. And so here I was this big activist, threatening to lock my neck to Marac Hall, at the same time representing the chancellor to students. And what I ended up learning, I think what was really valuable, was walking a fine line of activism and advocacy, and knowing that there is a way to make change by utilizing and understanding power, and how you actually harness that power, where, before we would actually do some big sit-in in Marac, I would actually talk to PD, the UCD PD. I would talk to administrators, and it was more for, strategy, to get public attention. And so, I think we were still able to be very effective while that all happened at UC Davis. And the coalition was huge. We ended up being over 7,000 members, over 30 organizations, cities, students, faculty, unions, religious groups. And so that to me was like my grounding of activism and being like a coalition builder. And how do you mobilize people? And from there, I got heavily into labor activism and international human rights, and founded the UC Davis chapter of United Students Against Sweatshops at the very beginning of USAS. And so that kind of grounded me, and then I pushed further and continued that. I went to grad school to do my master's in labor studies, and then I went ahead and started working in the labor movement, which I have been there ever since. I currently work for the California Nurses Association. I'm a researcher there. I've been there for almost 14 years, but I've been in the labor movement for about 20 years. And so my background is in healthcare and healthcare finance and health equity. In the last few years, right before COVID, what was really interesting was that I built a relationship, because when I was at UC Davis, we fought for 7 years to have the beginning of, or the approval of the Asian American Studies major. It was a huge battle, and we won. So I got to be part of the first graduating class of the Asian American Studies major. I'm still very passionate about that, and so when I came back to Davis, I immediately wanted to connect, and since then I've been helping the department teaching classes in Asian American Studies on health equity, public health, the healthcare industry, and how greed influences healthcare. And so when I got back to Davis, my neighbor was a city council member at the time, and he was just telling me about the different commissions. My wife and I applied. I applied for this one just because of my interest in a lot of these issues. My wife sits on the Social Services Commission, and so I have a deep passion for this type of work and building community support and coalitions. I currently sit at UC Davis through the help of Michael as the City of Davis rep on the Campus Council on Community and Diversity at UC Davis, and I love working with students, and so I still always am working with students. But since my tenure here at HRC, one of the things that we've been doing often and every year and annually is the Cesar Chavez Day celebration. And so myself and several others, we've been leading that for the last few years and trying to actually bring in new topics and I don't want to say new because I don't know the whole history of the event, but we tried to bring in different aspects that we would highlight, so we'd have a theme. And so the first year we hosted it, we wanted to bring in the different communities that were actually born into the farm workers movement. All the different groups that were not fully recognized, like the Filipino farm workers, the South Asian farm workers, all these groups. And so we wanted to actually highlight speakers and bring in a lot more different perspectives of struggle. And so I'll stop there. But I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy that we have so many new faces. Because what was happening with the city council limited our ability to bring in new members. So we were very small, not by choice. And we had key people leave. And so it's actually a huge relief to have new faces, new energy, because I can guarantee you the four of us were getting really tired. It's not a lot of work when you're having fun. And we try to have as much fun dealing with these really tough topics. And this last few years have been very challenging at Davis. So I'll leave it at that. Sorry, that was really long.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Progressive Student Coalition, does it still exist?
It does not still exist, but the
Spirit lives on.
Yeah.
spirit lives on. The ticket, the political ticket we started held control of ASUCD for almost 15 years. So it was around for a very long time. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Some things I didn't know.
Hey, Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate, please.
I'm Kate Snow. I am the coordinator of school climate for the school district. I'm an ex officio member. This is a non-voting position. But I was just reminded today, part of why I think I'm here, and Michael is the first person to hold this job in the district, so he could say more precisely. But in 2003, when the position was created and the school board established climate committees for every school, what I learned from, I think it was from Rick Gonzalez, was that it was there were small climate committees, at least some of the schools, that were called human relations committees. So I think the idea was that that was in particular why the climate coordinator position represents on the HRC is that. But I work on social climate. I work on making sure the schools are conducive to learning and working for adults and young people. That means I'm at the places where I'm listening. I'm listening for the places where things aren't working, things aren't going well, and where we can make change. A lot of the work I do now is with constituency groups who we work to build a community in which people can express their full experiences and then help connect those descriptions and ideas and needs with the levers of power in the system. So we had LGBTQ plus group of staff last year, for instance, or our African American staff have led, we've had groups that lead things like that. I also administer the quantitative climate survey data. It's late. It's a long day for a summer day. I do quantitative, I sort of assess, analyze, address climate. That's my sort of three categories. And so it's, those are all, I am here representing the district, or I am a connection to the district, but I come as a human being also. And try to provide both information and whatever I can bring from the district that, now that we have Lainey, there's another channel. But to provide some perspective on what the district's trying to do, where the initiatives are, where the emphasis is, what are some of the upcoming celebrations even, kinds of things we're doing. But it helps me to be able to convey here what we're experiencing and to match it with what students are experiencing. When we have dehumanizing language or symbols or actions, to have the community know about that, but also then to see that in the context of a larger community. Because what students are experiencing is not just what's happening to adults in other places as well. So I can't vote. I can come up with lots of good ideas, but I try to keep that in check so that we can, so that we can do what we can manage. But also I offer to connect. But by the beginning of the year, we should have some. Early in the year, we should have student representatives, so that we have good one the last couple of years. Yeah. So that's another piece of my role here.
Consider Da Vinci for that too, right?
Yeah, of course. And I've lived in Davis since 2008, so coming up on 16 years, I guess. I grew up in the South Bay in Cupertino. That's where my Apple allegiance just earlier today. But I spent 25 years back east, mostly in Boston, some in Providence, and sort of my work there was really community organizing. I was part of the community technology movement, actually, back in the 90s with the Boston Computer Society, and we were trying to get access out to folks that wouldn't otherwise get it. So that's sort of where I started, but I have done nonprofit management and strategic planning and grant writing and grant reading, and so I come into schools not so much from a long history in the schools, although I did teach for 4 years, but from a community organizing perspective. So that's a little bit.
That's great, thank you.
You have a child that went through the Davis School.
I have a child who went to Davis Schools and graduated from Da Vinci High School and is now about to go back in a week and a half to his third year of college, and so.
We managed to get a plug-in for Da Vinci.
I know. Yeah. We Da Vinci.
For Da Vinci.
It's a pretty little community.
All in on what I'm all in on. I apologize for that.
Yeah. And you know where someone's wife works.
My wife works there too. So.
Yeah, so just so you know. Anyway, I'll leave it there and then we can go.
Thank you, Kate, that was wonderful.
One other little piece is I work closely with our language programs, and we have a language justice initiative that developed into creating an interpreter program, setting standards, giving training, supporting both the staff who are doing interpreting, but also raising the quality of the interpreting we're doing for students and families. So that's another connection I have when we're talking about both, resources in the community about that. More to come.
Yes, hello. It's so nice to meet all of our new people in person. I met you on Zoom, but thank you for being here. Oh gosh, I don't know where to begin. I moved to Davis in '91 for school, and minus a few years living in Sacramento, we made our way back here in 2006, I think. So I think I lived in Sacramento for about 5 years. But I have 2 children who also graduated from this Davis Schools, which, we love living here. I did start working for the city in 1997, so I've been here quite a long time and done a lot of different things. Started in recreation, running summer camps and a variety of different programs. I moved into public art for a while, etc. But all of it sort of led me to the Human Relations Commission. So a lot of what I do is working with our community groups. My title is Community Relations Program Manager. So I work with our neighborhood services. I work with our sister cities. I do special events for the city, community programming, a lot of, and then I do other random sort of things like oversee our mailroom operations and budgeting and that sort of thing. But the majority of what I do is working with a variety of community groups and people in the city, and that's what I love the most. So I sort of feel like all the different things I've touched over the years kind of have led me here. I've been working with the Human Relations Commission for I think about 8 or so years now. Prior to that I did the Civic Arts Commission, and just really, really enjoy it. I feel passionate about the work you guys do in the community that I get to live in, and so I appreciate you all very, very much, and just look forward to supporting your efforts and that you do.
Well, you're selling yourself short a little bit because you're a major force in helping to make that community. So
Well,
I should acknowledge that.
And you host the biggest events in town.
There's a lot of people that work together on that, but I do the 4th of July, I do Neighbors Night Out, I oversee our holiday tree lighting, etc. But it's with a great team of people, of course. Pass it to Mike.
Good evening, everyone. Michael. I'm an ex officio by virtue of my role at the university. I am privileged to hold a leadership position in the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I lead the Office of Campus Community Relations. I have been a Davis resident since 1989. Went to school here, did a short stint at UC San Diego, transferred to UC Davis, never left. I mean, I thought after I finished my undergrad, I would go to the big bad city and be an urbanite, but that's not what happened. I fell in love with Davis, and so I continued my graduate work here, and right after I finished my undergrad, got a job that really started me off in my adulthood, working as a senior clerk. That classification no longer exists in the university personnel roles, but that really was my introduction to what it means to be a part of the university, and really gave me the exposure to what it means for me to choose to be in higher education as a career. Thereafter, I went into educational outreach when I worked in neighboring school districts, Sparta, Woodland, Dixon, working with students who potentially could be first-generation college students, and did that for a number of years. So my background for the first 16 years of my career at the university really is in student affairs. So it's in my cells. When I went to administration, it really is by virtue of my training as a diversity educator. I still refer to myself as a diversity educator by training. When I first was recruited to consider the position that Kate now holds, it was because I had that background, and so for a period of time I was doing 2 jobs, the university and the school district, which almost killed me. And after 1 year and a half, I said I have to make a decision. It was a 50% job at the university. I was 50% job at the school district and 75% at the university, and it was not 125%. So ultimately, just for my health and sanity, I had to make the decision to go back to the university full time. I have the same path in terms of my introduction to social justice work, very similar to Edgar's path. I was a student activist in Davis, certainly was engaged and participated in what now led to the development of the Cross Cultural Center, the LGBTQ Resource Center, the drafting of our Principles of Community back in 1990. So the student activism experience certainly informed the work that I do as an administrator focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is certainly a privilege for me to work in a space that focuses on the importance of what it means to create inclusive environments as an administrator at the university. It kind of removes you from that kind of direct work because you deal with a lot of other things that certainly take a little bit of time to ensure that you put yourself in the position that would really change the university in the long run, slow as it may seem, but I do think the university has changed since my time as a student at the university back in the early 90s. I think just like Kate, certainly, I mean, I'm here in the capacity of my role at the university, representing the university. I'm also a community member. I mean, I cut my teeth in doing community-related work when I joined the school district back in the early 2000s, but I care about this community. I often said that the best decision I've ever made was to get stuck in Davis because it certainly was the place that I saw myself thrive, both professionally and personally. I have a sister, or actually at one point 2 siblings who also lived in Davis. So we were 3 of less than, I don't know, at that time when we were counting, less than 60 Filipinos who lived in Davis. My sister, who was a single parent, I was a co-parent, helping her raise her 3 kids, and so I'm a co-parent to 2 nieces and 1 nephew who went through the school district. So went through all that stuff in the school district. So I really care about the condition of the learning environment here in Davis, and certainly for all of our students to thrive. I think what also informs my interest in the kind of work that all of us are engaged in is because I am an immigrant. I came to the United States when I was 11 years old, barely spoke English. As an English learner, certainly I knew from the get-go that I was very different. I did not just know that I was very different. It was pointed out to me that I'm very different on a daily basis. And so it informed what it means for me to look for the spaces that I wanted to feel that I belong, and I certainly found that at the university, and certainly found that here in Davis. So it's good to be here, and good to see the new colleagues around the table, and looking forward to sharing resources with everyone in terms of how the university can support the work of the commission.
It's great to have your knowledge and your expertise, your lived experience. Thank you, Michael.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Amir.
Yes, so
Professor
I,
Cole.
yeah, so I actually gave some thought to what I want to say tonight. So I actually prepared to have
Oh,
to
that's
read it.
cool.
I'll read that because it will make it a little bit easier for me and make sure that I have tendency I go along or tangent for a long time. So kind of keep it focused and touch on the things that I want to touch. So my name is Amir Cole, right? And I feel like I've always been passionate about social justice and human rights. From a young age, I've been inspired by figures like Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King, and Theodore Herzl, who fought against injustice using peaceful, nonviolence method to achieve lasting social changes. Most of my life, though, I've been a member of a social group that benefited from inherent privileges. So I am a Jewish citizen in Israel. I've been here since 2008, but I was born and raised in Israel. I'm Jewish, so it's a Jewish state with a significant non-Jewish minority. Moreover, I'm a Jewish Ashkenazi, which in Israel affords some privileges over Sephardi, Mizrahi, Yemenite, and Ethiopian Jews, like in many other, I think, societies. However, I feel like Jewish tradition reminds us each year that we were once also enslaved, and that freedom is both fragile and precious. And I feel like Dr. King's words resonate deeply with me, where he said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I moved to Davis seeking excellent education and professional opportunities, accompanied by my pregnant wife at the time and 2 toddlers, right, in 2008. In those early days, we felt welcomed and included. Davis truly seemed like a place that valued diversity, where people made an effort to be welcoming and inclusive. Our first significant encounter with anti-Semitism came when our oldest daughter was attending Davis High. So that's probably 5 years ago, something like that. During a class discussion on current events, the teacher asked her if she found it ironic that the Israeli military, the IDF, is employing Nazi practices against Palestinians in East Jerusalem. I want to pause here and ensure that everybody is here on the same page when we're saying Nazi practices, right? Because Nazi policies and practices led to systemic murder and extermination of 6 million Jews in Europe, including members of our own families. It's important to recognize the broader context of such a claim, that the vilification and Nazification of Jews and Zionists is a long-standing anti-Semitic trope. We spoke with the teacher and the school principal, but no meaningful consequences followed. At that time, we felt frustrated and confused, but also believed that that was an isolated incident that we should basically try to forget. Fast forward to October 7th last year, 2023. In the days following the horrific and barbaric attack on Israel, we witnessed a tidal wave of anti-Semitic incidents throughout Davis, creating a toxic environment for Jews, a climate that makes us feel isolated, unwelcome, and most concerning, unsafe. I want to remind everybody that less than a week after the attack, when our community was still reeling, we were advised by public officials not to congregate in our synagogue for our own safety, as we might be targeted. Right? So we're talking about like the Saturday right after the attack. At a time when we needed support the most, public official left us feeling abandoned. Since then, we have experienced unprecedented surge of anti-Semitism spanning UC Davis, the Davis Joint Unified District, and the city. I would appreciate the opportunity to deliver a comprehensive presentation during next meetings documenting anti-Semitic events in Davis. But for now, I will just share a few examples to illustrate the pervasive anti-Jewish climate in our community. Oftentimes, I want to emphasize that oftentimes those events are seen very minor and trivial, but I assure you that when you see the broader context of everything together, it's mind-blowing. So, on October 10th, a UC Davis professor tweeted, and I quote, "One group of people easy to get into US is all these Zionist journalists who spread propaganda and misinformation. They have houses with addresses, kids in schools. They can fear their bosses, but they should fear us more." This tweet was accompanied by a knife, axe, and 3 blood drops emojis. A leader from Student Injustice in Palestine from the UC Davis chapter posted on Instagram, "I wake up daily and pray for their death and pray for their forever sentencing to hell. Zionists are vicious. They are evil. They're not people, they're not humans, they are devils. I wholeheartedly, with everything in me, support every armed Palestinian resistance group." Students have marched through the UC Davis campus chanting through Bullhorn, and I quote, "El Qassam, you make us proud, kill another 100 now." Jews are being excluded from public spaces on campus, graffiti stating, and I quote, "Good soldier / Zionist / settler is a dead one," has appeared. Yet, there has been no significant response from UC Davis leadership. Just yesterday, a federal judge in Los Angeles issued a preliminary injunction ordering UCLA not to allow protesters to block Jewish students from accessing campus facilities like libraries, classrooms, and gathering places. More importantly, Judge Scarsi wrote, and I quote, "In the year 2024, in the United States of America, in the state of California, in the city of Los Angeles, Jewish students were excluded from portions of the UCLA campus because they refused to denounce their faith. This fact is so unambiguous and so abhorrent to our constitutional guarantee of religious freedom that it bears repeating. Jewish students were excluded from a portion of the UCLA campus because they refused to denounce their faith." End of quotation. UCLA does not dispute this. Instead, UCLA claims it has no responsibility to protect religious freedom of its Jewish students. Because the exclusion was engineered, this is still the judge, because the exclusion was engineered by third-party protesters. However, under constitutional principles, UCLA may not allow services to some students while knowingly excluding others on religious grounds. The events that have occurred on the UC Davis campus, and this is I'm saying, are as discriminatory as those at UCLA. Students in public schools are being bullied and threatened because of their Jewish heritage. Swastikas are appearing in major public spaces. Signs at farmers' market depict the Israeli Prime Minister as the devil drinking the blood of Palestinian people, and the list goes on. This is why I joined the Human Relations Commission. Anti-Semitism is disrupting the fragile fabric of our community, and we must all stand together against it. Regardless of your political views, whether you support or oppose the policies of the Israeli government, whether you are liberal or conservative, anti-Semitism must not be tolerated in our community, period. I hope to use this honorable and important platform to promote social justice and human rights for all residents of Davis, including the Jewish community. We should publicly celebrate Jewish heritage, denounce anti-Jewish bigotry and hatred, and promote civil discourse among the diverse group within our community who are suffering and hurting. We must be honest when we look at the mirror and acknowledge that anti-Semitism is more deeply rooted in our community than we would like to believe and admit. Fighting it will not be fast or easy, but it is our moral obligation. Other than that, I'm a faculty member at UC Davis. I came here, I did my residency, I stayed for a PhD, and then it's like Hotel California, like many of us. I got here, I fell in love with the town, with the people, and we've been here since.
Mayor, thank you for sharing the passion and your eloquence, and we look forward to your contributions. Thank you. Great.
Lainey Pickett, she, her pronouns. And as you might know, for some reason by now, I'm a teacher at Da Vinci. I was 9 years at the junior high. Now I'm going to my third year at the high school. And I teach 9th grade ethnic studies and 12th grade Gov and Econ English. And I've been in Davis since I graduated college. I came here after college, unlike most of you guys. I grew up in Maryland, and my father got a professorship at UC Davis, and my brother started attending UC Davis. So my whole family moved here while I was in college. And I graduated college and was like, what else am I doing? So I moved to Davis, and I'm still here. So I raised 2 children here. They are 20 and 24. My daughter's going into sophomore year at UC Davis as a student. And my oldest is finding their way and going back to community college at 24, and I'm very proud of them. And what else? So I attend the Unitarian Universalist Church, which is one of my communities of people who tend to try to do justice type work in the world. And what else? I thought there were some things I wanted to say, but I have a history of doing a lot of different things through my church, particularly when multiculturalism was like the anti-racism thing, when colorblindness was the anti-racism thing. Like the Unitarian Universalist Church has always tried to like be progressive on things, and there's a lot of mistakes made, but there was like trainings that many of us attended, and I ran for many, many years. We have district-wide UU gatherings, and I ran like children's programs that had kids reflect on and think about race and racism, and diversity, equity, and inclusion type of things. I've been on the district, as soon as our district started thinking about ethnic studies, I've been involved with that, creating all of the, doing all the big picture thinking and networking with the community, creating the curriculum and now teaching it. And I'm also the restorative practices coordinator for Da Vinci, so that's like conflict management, which I've been doing for about 10 years of running that kind of program. I've got students trained in restorative practices, and then I facilitate difficult conversations between teachers and students and each other, teachers and each other, principal and students, whatever it is. It's been an interesting go of it, but I hope that lends some like diplomacy to my work on the Human Relations Commission, and it does make me want to like be for the HRC to be a venue for doing some restoring of harm that is done in Davis. It's probably enough about me. I don't know if people told more stories, but it'll come out eventually, isn't it?
Well, we've all really benefited from your skills and experience, so thank you. It's appreciated. Connor, what's you?
So I'm Connor, he, him. So like a lot of other people, I came to Davis for the university, though I also came after college because I came for grad school about 11 years ago. And I liked it enough that I decided to stay. And when I first came, I got involved in labor organizing fairly quickly. Our union of the student workers was in bargaining when I came here, and we went on strike a few months after I got here. And specifically, that strike was in solidarity with AFSCME 3299, which is the Union of Patient Care and Service Workers, which is very disproportionately people of color and woman and low income, and they're also, unsurprisingly, one of the most mistreated groups of workers on campus by the administration. So we want to strike in solidarity with them, and that kind of showed me the value of solidarity and supporting the most marginalized, and also of direct action and disruption. So I became very involved in labor organizing, and because we were also a very social justice oriented union, we would often collaborate with other groups on campus, off campus, in Sacramento. So I became very involved in different struggles around the region, and learned more about those types of things, as well as tactics and intersectionality and all those related issues. And then eventually I was involved in the No DAPL movement, the opposition to the Dakota Access Pipeline, because of both environmental reasons and indigenous rights and climate justice and all those types of intersecting things. And one of the tactics we were using was trying to get the city of Davis to move money away from Wells Fargo. So that is what brought me into city politics. And at that point, I started kind of regularly following and going to city council meetings, and I became more involved in city politics as well, as kind of a diversity of tactics. So there's the direct action and the social movement stuff, and then there's also the official, formal institutional stuff. And yeah, I eventually decided that a commission would be a useful thing for me to participate in, even while simultaneously continuing to do other types of activist and organizing work as well. And the HRC was definitely one of the ones that aligned with my values and my interests around social justice and all of the different struggles and all of their intersections. So I applied for the HRC, and I was eventually appointed to it a few years ago. And since then, I've also gotten more involved in mutual aid, especially through Night Market, as another tactic within the diversity of tactics. So all sorts of issues and all sorts of tactics are what my interests are in, related to HRC purview.
That's great, thank you, Carmen.
Can I say one more?
Please.
You brought up political action, and I'm going to say out loud, my partner is running for city council, that is Victor Lagunes, and he's been the head of the teachers union for many years now, and so lots of union advocacy has happened in our lives. When we started teaching 11 years ago, 12 years ago, the union, I want to say was not functional really. There was not any real activism of any kind happening, and I feel like through our effort, as well as some other people that kind of started at the same time we did, our union has become very vocal and pretty organized, and so that's something that I'm proud of, and just felt like I should make that connection out loud, just in case it seems like I didn't mention it on purpose.
Sounded like kind of a full disclosure kind of thing.
For better or for worse, this is happening in my life.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. It's a great additional angle to your skill set. Well, it's so funny for me to sit around the table with you all, because I feel like I could have crossed paths with you at different points in my life. I started my education as a social work student and got into pre-law program and ended up going to law school, where I practiced in Boston for about 10 years or so. I was born in Detroit. You can tell by the white hair that I came from back in the day when the civil rights movement was very much, I think, in the air and part of my influence. And for some reason, I just never identified with my demographic. But I started practicing employment discrimination law out of law school, and then moved to LA to work for a nonprofit that I'm doing Latino civil rights called Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund. And did like bigger class action kind of cases there, and followed a relationship up to Sacramento in about 25 years ago, I guess. And would have been there, except for the fact that that relationship ended at some point. And I am in Davis because of Match.com. Because I met my partner online, and she lives in Davis. It was too hard for her to commute from there over the Causeway. So I have been in Davis since 2014. I retired now after, I retired as the head of advocacy for the American Civil Liberties Union in California down at the Capitol. And previously had been with the legislature as the chief deputy counsel of the Assembly Judiciary Committee, where I got to work on a lot of social justice issues, language rights, among others. I was very privileged to be involved in that crazy process. And despite that, I haven't given up hope on politics and change and all that stuff. But it's just so interesting to hear kind of how people kind of come together. And now that I've retired, I saw that there maybe was an opportunity to get more involved in the community that I live in kind of accidentally, but have come to love. And really thrilled to be here with you guys, because there's just so much knowledge and passion and care and concern and skills that you have all brought in a lot of different ways. So I'm really looking forward to getting to work with you on things that matter to you all. And I hope to be able to be a facilitator for that, where we've got some consensus. And I am not as skilled as Lainey, but I am a certified mediator. So I try to bring folks together, and hopefully with all of your skills and energy and passion, we will make this place a little better. Or as I started deciding, my new goal was, after many years as an activist, I was just not going to make it any worse. I started wanting to change.
Won't say that right now.
I started wanting to change the world, and now I'm hoping not to do no harm. Anyway, so I feel like we've got about like 25 minutes, and I just hope maybe we can start thinking about some of the things we might want to do, and only in like a really brainstormy kind of way. And I'm just like interested in hearing from folks, because the advantage for the new folks of joining at this moment in time is that there's not a lot of like preset stuff. There are things that we had talked about, and we're going to start talking about again at our next meeting. We recently approved the City Council's, recommended to the City Council the land acknowledgement, and there was a good discussion both here and then I think at the City Council too, about whether there's more that can be done to make that sort of less than a, I don't know, kind of a Pledge of Allegiance sort of thing that everybody kind of recites lightly and forgets, into maybe something more meaningful. There's been talk about whether we might make changes to the city's holiday observations, winter holiday observations or ceremonies, so that it might be as welcoming as possible. That's on a very short time frame, but there have been a number of people who have mentioned that in the past. And I'm trying to think of, we have sort of a long-standing kind of interest in trying to kind of create an online presence that might sort of better communicate some of our programs.
Something that's looming is like, what is our relationship with Hate Free Together?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
apparently the city would like us to have a tight connection there, but we have.
Yeah, exactly, and you'll see that reflected kind of in the memo that Carrie put together. This Hate Free Together, as I think people know, is an initiative that was created without involvement with with this group, the HRC. But it's one I think that we should continue to have a role in. And we had sort of an initial presentation from the sort of city's staff person, who's one of the members of the steering committee, and wanted to have her back along with anybody else from that group. And because of some scheduling problems, we weren't able to do that until the next meeting, but it's ideal. The next meeting is going to include all the new folks too. So we have a role to be determined, which is kind of specified in our new resolution, which is the community engagement aspect of the Hate Free Together campaign. But we don't know exactly what that is going to look like. But thank you for mentioning it, because it's another one of the kind of pending projects. In addition to that,
Connection to that is that I previously was not as connected to it, but now that I'm now the district connection, I'm the district member on the executive committee. for Hate Free Together.
thank you for
So,
reminding me about that. Kate.
yeah,
Well, they mentioned that actually, I think, in the last meeting, but good reminder. So you're going to be a key person in that linkage, I think. Potentially. I know you don't have a magic
And
wand.
I'm
either, but-
hoping that our student commissioner will be part of, we have we will be launching basically a superintendent student advisory this fall that will be the manifestation of the student group that the superintendent and the Board of Education has to have happen in order to combat dehumanizing language and symbols of actions. So that'll be closely tied with Hate Free Together.
Nice. Okay, so we are going to have a presentation from Hate Free Together, and if you're not familiar with it, there's a website. Please go and kind of familiarize yourself. I think it's kind of generally out there,
Just a quick question. So I've been meeting with Jenny Tan, the city person in charge of Hate Free Together. Carrie, can you clarify? I'm not the designated person yet, right? Am I? Because I don't have to be or need to be, and then now that we have more people,
Yeah, and we never
decided.
right, so
Okay,
you've
good.
not been meeting with Jenny as a commissioner.
Oh, I haven't.
No.
I've been, as an individual.
Now you
As
have.
a-
Okay, good. We were just
Okay.
chit-chatting on Mishka's then about city issues. All right, okay.
Wouldn't it be great?
but your contributions are welcome.
Yeah, but I'd also love for others, like, who have interest in this. I don't want to lock it for myself either. Obviously I have interest in this, but I want to open it up to anybody who feels like this is something that their specialty could assist in.
I think before we go down that road, we actually need to have a conversation as an entire commission to decide if we even do
Yeah.
want a commission liaison to the community engagement part of the city for Hate Free Together, because that's the specific.
Is it in the new language
Uh-huh.
that we
Yeah,
have
it's
to?
in the memo there.
Yeah.
Oh, that you have to.
That we need to be part of the 3-unit collaborative now between the city, the
So
university,
the
and the
language,
county.
can you borrow that just for a
Yeah,
minute?
sure.
Thank you. So the specific language is serving as the lead commission regarding the city's community engagement component of the Hate Free Together initiative.
This is the exact language pulled? Oh, so it doesn't say that there has to be a
No,
representative from the HRC.
no.
Oh, okay.
It's specific to community engagement
Got it.
of the city.
Is the hope that when we get the presentation, the next meeting, we make that decision?
Well, we'll kind of clarify what the role is, and then we don't actually have to do it at the next meeting, but Jenny will be here to do a presentation to everybody, to get everybody up to speed if they're not familiar with Hate Free Together, and then that will be part of the conversation at that meeting, is to figure out what community, the community engagement component
Okay.
means, and go from there.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Yes.
I think there were some preliminary conversations about maybe creating a subcommittee of this group that would perform that liaison function. I'd like to hear from be put together about what they envision too. Not that
Yeah,
that would be
yeah.
determinative, but if we're gonna look at them,
Yeah, I
we
think
should know what they have in mind.
absolutely. I think Jenny will be able to, Jenny and I will have a follow-up meeting and hopefully have a little bit more clarification before our next meeting to see what that might look like.
And then Amir.
I just had a quick question, which is, when, is it also at our next meeting that we're creating like our work plan for the year? We did that last year at like a special meeting, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we'll have time at next week's meeting with the Hate Free Together conversations. I think that's probably gonna involve quite a bit, but yes, we absolutely need to do that soon. And I think having a full commission now and the ability to maybe, create some new subcommittees if you guys are interested, we'll be able to do that. So I would think that, that would be, coming up soon.
Yeah, I think
Seems like the ability to create subcommittees at our next meeting, even if briefly, would be.
I think we can get
Otherwise, it's
started on that without having a comprehensive conversation. There are a couple of things that are sort of, pending that maybe would be better kind of started sooner rather than later. So if there's a consensus about a couple of things that we might move forward with, I don't think we need to like have a comprehensive conversation about life, the universe, and everything.
But like land
Until-
acknowledgement, for example,
Right.
we've already talked about it, maybe we could just quick appoint a subcommittee so
Yeah,
that we
I think that
can move
makes a lot
forward
of
on
sense,
that.
yeah. But I do want to kind of leave space for, broader conversation about things that are kind of in the new business category.
Yeah, I think because the new functions were just official July 1st, we haven't had a full commission conversation about what the three, the very specific functions are, and then sort of, where we go with those.
Okay, so we've had a year and then Connor.
So that was actually one of my questions. The other question is a little bit more broad and just in like how the commission works. How do we get things on the agenda?
Well, you can start with me.
So does that do we at the end of each meeting, are we gonna discuss what do we wanna have on next time agenda and then or how does that work?
I mean, there has not been a very formal process. It kind of develops organically a little bit as a result of our conversations. But by all means, if there's anything
That
that
there is
you-
opportunity to communicate by email and suggest or
Yeah,
do we have any
Maybe
opportunity?
here.
hop in here a little bit. We do have a long-range calendar item on every agenda. So what we really should be doing is looking at that at every meeting. And then if there's something that a commissioner is interested in putting on it, it's really the consensus of the commission that it would be, talked about. So we'll put it on our long-range calendar and then we know sort of what's coming up, what might be pressing, and then we've got these topics that if we feel like we've got a little bit of room, we can put those in there. So at every meeting, we'll have that discussion of long-range calendar items.
And put just a little bit of a finer point on that. I would like to see us put some dates on some of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can do that.
So that
So
they're not just
hang on.
long-term Sunday, they're like November. or
Yeah.
whatever.
I try and do that when you guys, if you'll see in the minutes, I sometimes will put a parentheses of what month, but Kevin, we can certainly, at every meeting sort of look and see if we've got, new priorities and want to bump something up or move something down, add something in that's, pressing, we can definitely do that. So maybe we need to just spend a little bit more time on that particular item at each, meeting, so.
Right, good. Mayor, did you have other questions, or did that?
I have more, but I'll yield.
Okay, good, it's good that you have questions. Con?
Yeah, so I did like the months in parentheses for some of the items at the June meeting. So I definitely support that. And I know we had a bit of a longer discussion than usual during long range at that meeting. And yeah, that's definitely something that could happen in the future as needed or even every meeting, because that is an important item. Sort of on a somewhat similar note, my main question here is the Hate Free Together item next,
Ask the finger.
next week,
Yeah.
is that, do we know what the allocated time for that is and what the breakdown of that time is? Because the last time we had a Hate Free Together item, there was a lot of presentation and very little time for questions and discussion. And I want to make sure that we have a substantial question period and discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. We did talk about that, and I think that this particular item will involve more discussion time because we really do need to sort of figure out what the community engagement direction means. So I think that Jenny's planning to probably do a 15-minute overview, Connor, of Hate Free Together, and, you know, provide updates for, I mean, obviously an overview for anybody who's not familiar, and then updates from whatever we heard last time, and then we can work into a lengthier discussion. So yes, I think we've talked about that needs to have ample time because we've haven't been able to pursue that.
Okay. I forgot to mention.
They
that we work in a
restrained
big
her from
family.
the side of the
Yeah.
table, see?
We had more people than this around our dining
Oh, my
room table.
goodness.
So I just dive in.
Good. I was about to start force feeding people.
But Mayor, just before we lose your point, I just want to say that getting ideas out is one of the things that we can do today, right? So I don't want to like,
All right.
don't feel like you can't start making those
What?
suggestions.
So I was happy to hear, so I didn't know, so
Clarification, we don't have long-range calendar on this agenda, so we're moving off our specific agenda for this evening.
No, I'm asking Amir to respond to one of, or any of the points, including
Great.
what do you think are some of the issues and challenges
Okay.
that you think HLC should be discussing?
yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I was happy to hear that we probably are gonna have a kind of more of a discussion about our priorities and goals for the next year, right? Identifying, I don't know, like 3 or so, that seems like a reasonable number of kind of key targets that we wanna address, and so I think that's an important discussion. The other, I think, important point of discussion is that in order to do anything, usually you need money to support that. So I'm newbie to this kind of whole, you know, political game, but I wonder if there are any potential grants that we can apply for specific projects, because right now my understanding is that there is no real any budget for this commission, right? And if we kind of, you know, if we recommend to the city that A, B, and C should be done, I mean, they may or may not, you know, if there is dollar amount associated with it, then, you know, there is no obligation and there may or may not, you know, adopt that, right? So I think that it gives us much more power over what we want to do if we actually have the budget to, you know, support that, right? So, and again, this is where I turn to people who've been around longer, like, are there any grants or that we could apply to support some of our actions?
You know, certainly, I mean, if the commission wanted to research available grants and suggest to city council that that's something that you're interested in, try and go for to back up some of your initiatives, that's fine.
I think also once we figure out what we want to focus on, I think it will become more clear whether there are grants available, like either national or state, and then we can do that research. I think it makes sense as a commission to be able to do some of that research and bring it forward to the city to see
Absolutely,
if we can write it as a city grant
yes,
specifically.
absolutely, yeah, we just,
I'm running
yeah.
down fundraising committee, chaired by Professor Cole.
This is a little tangential to that, but after last year on this commission, where it was really hard to get anything done because the commissions were being reworked, and so like we didn't have a proper avenue for communication or whatever it is. There's two things I thought about in preparation for this meeting related to your questions, which I thought were excellent and could take many, many hours for us to, we need to have an actual cocktail party to talk about those things. But I would love to see, number one, like a way to, like a process we use or something a little bit more clear about when we have people who come to speak to us. I know Carrie like tries to collect what people said, but like some slightly better process where we take down the information, we research some of it ourselves, and we packet it up and we get it to the city council, and that there's some like known process for that, so that we really are like eyes and ears for the city council, and so that people can know that what they're telling, like we're that conduit that they think we are, which we weren't really last year, because there wasn't a proper avenue to really I mean, we did, we collected a lot of information and then we gave it to them, sort of, but anyway, that. And then the other thing is just making, I still don't understand what the process is by which, if we decide we wanna work on something, we wanna get grant funding, and we go start getting grant funding, and we're gonna work on something, but like the city council's like, no, actually, we don't want you to do that, right? So we need to have this, like, there's, the way that we communicate with them, which I think is gonna be a lot better this year, because now things are settling out a little bit. But how is it that we know what they want us to do? Like, why are they not delegating things and setting our work plan? Like, here are things that we need from you, please go do these things for us. I think that might start happening more. I've talked to basically everybody on city council at some point in the last couple of months, and I think they really do respect this commission, and I think they do wanna put us to work. But then also, like, how do we communicate with them? Hey, we really wanna do this thing, can we have your blessing? And how do we know what we need their permission for and what we can just take on ourselves? That's still like very unclear to me where the lines are with that, so.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I have a lot of the same kind of questions, like how much of what we do is that we bring it up and the city approves it, or how much of it is this the city council saying we really need you to address this thing, and we have to sort of think of that as our goal or add it into our goals. One question I had, one of my backgrounds in the work that I was doing in tech is this kind of like organizational, what are our goals, figuring that out, brainstorming, and like getting very clear on what the goals are for the quarter, the year. And I'm curious if that's something that can be done within like one of our meetings where we essentially, we would call it OKRs, which is basically figure out your objectives and your key results and get to the point where you have essentially 3 to 5 objectives and like very clearly how you're going to meet those objectives. Financing would be one of those things. I found that extremely helpful. I do it for my own personal stuff. It's a great exercise to get people speaking and throwing out ideas. And then it also very much allows you to focus. So I'm curious if that's something we can do like in one of these meetings. I don't know, because it's usually not
Going on the agenda.
So following up on that, I think that there are two ways for us to determine our priorities. There is the empiric way, which I think that it's not really available right now, but I think that it should be a goal for next year's meeting. And by empirical means that we need to know what the city, what people who live in the city see as a priority, right, that we should address, right? And then the other thing is that each and one of us individually, we bring our own kind of passions and priorities, which reflect our own little bubble within the city, right? I mean, we all kind of, look around and we try to do good, I think, right? But it reflects what we want. But it seems like right now we have really option one, but I think meaning our own personal experiences. But I think that it would be good to start working toward some sort of a mechanism where we can reach out every so often, right, with some sort of a survey or not sure exactly what, right, and in a way that we have something that is more objective empirically that is driving the work of this commission, right, that we are grounded within our community and not just, pulling things from the sky.
Yeah.
It came up many times last year, and it's very complicated.
I brought this up also in my interview, which was, I don't know, do we have a climate survey that we, like an annual climate survey that we put out to the community?
I don't think it's annual, there is something, I'll have to get back to you on that, I can't remember the last time something was put out, but.
I can speak to that.
Oh, thank you, Kevin.
Because it's been a long-standing interest of mine too, as a relatively new commission member, which is that the city has periodically conducted what they call a community survey. The last one was done in 2022, or completed in 2022. I don't actually know exactly what the methodology was. Was it totally random opinion survey, or did people just opt into it by going to the online site or whatever? But there is information there that I pulled down when I first started looking at it, and I'm happy to kind of share some of the highlights. Most of it was not about issues that are directly related to our work, like taxation and other things. How do you feel about the fire department or whatever? But there were some takeaways that I thought were relevant. I don't know when they plan to do the next one. It appeared to be like 3 to 5 years. I've seen those of you who have more history of the city might know, I saw one that was done in like 2019, I think, and
That,
before
I don't have an exact
2017.
answer, but that feels familiar.
I've been here 25 years and I've never heard of it.
Yeah,
Nobody asked me.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if is it doable for us to take that on and say, we want to do a citywide climate survey, helping even maybe craft what that looks like, making sure that also the methodology around it is sound. And then have that, I agree, Amir, like that, usually when you're figuring out your goals, you need a data set or some type of quantitative data to help you, and qualitative, to help you really make that decision about what should be the priorities. So that would be great.
The city council members I talked to about it did not seem like it was something that they were going to
Do themselves or
think.
push for.
Yeah, I mean, it would take a lot of money to do it by mail. We don't have people's email addresses and that, at that kind of level. What I do know is that Davis Media Access is doing like a huge, they're trying to like reinvent themselves as community media, because all community media is basically dying. And Autumn Labe-Renault, who runs that organization, is trying really hard to do like a community survey on where you get your information and what you need from us in terms of information. And I had a casual conversation with her about like, could you just throw some other questions in there, like while you're asking people? And she's like, maybe, sure. So there might be like some weird way that we could like survey different communities through coalitions of other people who want to survey different communities.
Sorry, Connor, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so I do think having more data could be useful. We definitely shouldn't put too much emphasis on it. Like, we can't like think that we have no idea like what like major issues are without like a survey. There's definitely sometimes a tendency in academia to think too highly of like certain methodologies and not others. But I do think it could be helpful, and I do wonder if the relationship with Hate Free Together / the university and people at the university who design and implement surveys, and also who cover like the different topics that this survey would include. But also like just the methodology of the survey itself, if that would be a useful partnership, and if that could be like a good opportunity to really work through Hate Free Together as like this kind of coalitional like thing between the school, the city, the county, and the university.
Yeah, I love bringing all of those together. Oh, sorry, you had your hand. I didn't see.
I know, I just put it up. It's this table, right?
I couldn't see this there.
So as the person who administers and has administered the climate surveys for the school district for the last 13 years, I certainly have experience in, we use existing surveys, we don't develop them ourselves, except for some small modifications. I would say, I wonder about our question, when I think about how to get the real story, like you're saying, like what the community really wants. I think even the designing of a survey and how the outreach works and how who's going to respond, right? I mean, we know by the standard survey developments, whether it's by email or by paper or whatever, right, are going to reach the standard folks. And I think part of our job, I see it as part of my job in the district, and I think as part of our job as a commission, is to figure out the ways we can get to people that aren't necessarily the traditional ways. Because the traditional ways, those folks come to council meetings, they'll show up at these meetings.
They send email.
But folks, for instance, the 10 senoras who've been working in the Cafecito program run by Jimena Diaz-Jackson and the Davis Venus Coalition, right? Those are 10 women directly from the Spanish-speaking community who were over 2 years were in monthly, twice monthly meetings to learn about how political processes work, to build their own voice, and in the process of those 2 years went to city council meetings, went to county supervisor meetings, spoke up at school board meetings. So just as an example of, I think the effort it takes to really hear what isn't already bubbling at the public level. I mean, I kind of feel like elected officials, their climate, what they hear as climate is just who comes to them, right? And who keeps them in their jobs, who they're responding to as a political position. So I just wonder about how, maybe our contribution or some part of our contribution is to help the community understand, get to some corners that we don't normally get to the places or the voices that aren't usually speaking up. And maybe a survey is a way to do it, and maybe not. Maybe there's some other things we could do.
Yes, just making sure that people who we should hear from, and maybe aren't even yet in the community. I mean, one of the things that's unique about this community is how different it looks from the rest of California.
Yeah.
So do we want to hear from people who don't feel welcome, who aren't yet included?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo a little bit of what Connor said, which is like, I think we do need to take a balanced approach. Like, it will be good to have data, and Kate, you were kind of alluding this to as well. If we get to do a survey, let's not have it be like the be all end all, this is it, like, and now we just drive forward to that, because I think you're right, we are speaking to within our own communities and to other communities, and we can bring some of that forward. And I do think we have to be very cautious about the design of survey they can never really be perfect. And also, even how you promote a survey and get it out there, you might end up having a bias in terms of who takes the survey. So I think it has to just be one. I think it could be one input that could help us. And maybe just if we decide to move forward with it, we just have to be very cautious and intentional, knowing that it is not the only thing that informs us.
We'll see. Okay, I want to get other thoughts that might be percolating on the table. Obviously not the end of the discussion, but is there stuff that on your mind that
Just like, I was like, from sitting on this commission for so long, and someone who came in and was just like so excited to like do stuff, and I got here, and then all of a sudden like all these anti-Asian hate crimes started happening, and we were just like, we were trying to just be so proactive, and I just want to kind of let everybody know, like, things here work slow, and it can get infuriating for us commission members who want things to move faster, and we want to get stuff done. And I just want to put that out there first so that you don't get frustrated on how slow some things go, just because of the process, because of the way things have to show up on an agenda and then be discussed. And you're like, well, by the time we discuss it, the topic and the issue is like done, you know, and trying to get a response from city council, it can be really frustrating. So just as a precursor to your tenure here, you know, it took me a while to learn how slow things happen.
We've
To
got
me,
to
like,
build lasting, thoughtful
Yeah.
things that, like, when we're putting our energy into something, let's make sure it's something that's replicable or that's annual or that's.
Well, and realizing our capacity. A lot of the things we want to do, guess what? We have to do it ourselves. And as much as just coming to a monthly meeting, you know, how much of extra time do you want to invest into putting these projects out there? And we also have tasks with doing public events that we have to help coordinate. So I just want us to be able to think of a balanced approach on what your capacity is to work on this commission, absolutely work for the things you're passionate about. You know, that's why we're all here, right? But also know that things go slow. And we will push it as fast as we can. But, you know, there are just so many things that pause us from moving faster than we want. And I've been frustrated many times, but at the same time, I'm really glad we've been able to do a lot of things we have been able to do. But a lot of it comes from personal initiative and your own passion to do it. Yeah.
So Edgar is speaking from his experience as he related earlier as a both inside and outside activist. I think that's good advice to remember.
Yeah.
It is very hard for us to respond immediately in the moment to the crisis at a particular time.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I think there are longer term objectives that, you know, the Arc of the Moral Universe stuff that we can start bending.
Absolutely. And I wish someone told me that when I first got here, so I wouldn't have like hit the ground sprinting. I should have just like strategized more and understood the capacity and the what the intricacies of a commission is allowed to do. And then once understanding that, then I'm like, okay, this is a better path to take. Yeah, because I didn't fully get it and I'd wasted all this energy. And so we're here to help you. Like whatever your topic, whatever you're passionate about, like for the folks that have been here, especially Carrie, super knowledgeable, ask, and if you really want to take something, go for it. Absolutely.
And luckily Edgar has not run out of energy.
No, is that possible?
I'll just bring food.
Well, the other constraints are the Brown Act. I mean, there's a lot, right? We can't communicate with we can't just send an email. We can write to Carrie, and she can write to all of us. Or we can write to two of us, is that right?
You can communicate with less than a majority.
Yeah, if you're on the
You can
subcommittee,
communicate to anyone you want, because you're not a voting member.
Well, good point.
No, we can send to
everybody just call
like
me.
two people.
Yeah, we've said.
Well, that might be a
Why am I
serious
not taking
issue,
advantage
though.
of that before? Yeah.
but yes, if you're on the subcommittee, you can communicate
With your
with
secretary.
your
Yeah.
subcommittee.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why the subcommittees are functional.
Yeah.
Are much more agile to move.
Can I just put a little plug for public comment, whenever you're ready?
Isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I'm noticing that you've gone over our 7:30 time by a little bit as the conversation was winding down. We do have a member of the public here, and I want to open the meeting up for public comment on the items, or the one item on the agenda. Please.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I apologize that. I think the biggest challenge you have is not dealing with hate. I think that's a canard, because we are faced with lots of deep, deep hates that we are not going to solve. Our challenge, I think, in Davis is how do we live together even though these hates and these angers reside in us. Some are existential. How do we keep it from corrupting to fear? So my concern is the hate-free framing is a sort of conceit that we're going to abolish hate. How do we basically live together in this community? How do we make it a safe place where it feels like, even though we know people profoundly and existentially disagree? I think that's the real challenge. And I don't think we're going to exterminate hate. I think that's a false thing. Because when you think of hate, you try to, well, he's the hater. You're looking for the guilty parties versus finding how do I live with that other person even though I deal with them. What are the rules of the road in terms of getting along in our community so we can feel it's a safe place. So that's the real challenge. I have a book I recommend. I know the elephant in the room, I think, is the Israel Palestine thing, which is really divisive. I'm Jewish. I feel on both sides of this thing. It's a book called The Wall Between, and it talks about the competing narratives of what's going on, these competing facts, and holding the other and their difference, and realizing they are sincere in trying to make a world, even though they hold a different narrative. And this is a book, my wife's involved with an interfaith group, between Muslim and Jews, and they talk a lot. And there's really been a lot of conflict after October 7th. But that's, I think, how do we live together? How do this rules of civility, something like that, how do we make that and permeate that to the entire city of Davis? So we say, you've crossed, you're no longer civil. Versus, I know you're angry with me, that's okay, but let's be civil, even in the conflict. We can't abolish conflict, but how do we deal with it productively? Because actually no conflict means we've hidden it, because there's always conflict. There's always conflict. So how do we have the appropriate level of conflict and deal with it productively? So that's my thought for you in terms of, then let's not abolish hate. Let's encompass hate and feel how do we have productive conflicts. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll pass this on.
Thank you for your comment. Okay. Having gone over our time a little bit, I know we have just begun to scratch the surface. But I don't want to hold folks longer. If there are any other kind of final thoughts, I'm open to hearing them now. and as I'm sure your colleagues would like to hear as well. But if not, I want to thank everyone for a very productive meeting, for showing up in a special additional meeting for August. We'll be reconvening in about a week.
Next Thursday.
Second.
We didn't get to our 3 questions.
Sort of. I think you touched on it.
We did.
We can, and we don't have to stop having a discussion about any of those things. Thank you all. This is the beginning of a rich and productive conversation, and I'm really super excited about learning from you and looking at all the expertise. If there are no other comments, then we will call the meeting to a close and adjourn.
Thank you, Kevin. Good
And I
job.
second your
Nice job.
appreciation of the new folks for stepping
Yeah.
up, really pleased to have you here, and yeah, glad you have